Created Life Consulting, actually, I was born, like the seed of it, maybe 5-6 years back as a name, because I really, through my own transformational journey and self-development, got that it is so possible for each and every one of us to be able to create a life that we want. And that's kind of the core of my work, and my mission is to empower people to really have that agency, and not just oh, it sounds cool to say, and it's the trendy thing to say is you're the author of your life. But no, really, when you really can get that, anything becomes possible. You get to create the life that you want.
Life gets tough, and I know it's hard to cope with the unknown. For all of us, I know it'd be easy if we were perfect, but we're not. So we go to find our faith, to find our hope. It all begins with looking up. It all begins with you. It's time to elevate. We sing it loud and proud. We make our voices known. Nothing can shut them out. Elevate. Shout it for you.
I'm Lucente, and welcome to Time to Elevate. I'm excited to share my guest with you today, but before I introduce her, let me tell you a little bit about her journey so far. We met in the early 2000s over some lipstick and skincare products. I was a Mary Kay beauty consultant at the time, and I was working towards becoming a sales director, and she just happened to be a guest at one of my parties. I kind of got the feeling that she really wasn't quite impressed with the business or anything I was doing, but I was wrong, because not too long after that night, she joined my team, and it was a fun ride for a few years after that. Today, she is a therapist, life coach, and transformational leader. She's a successful entrepreneur running her virtual therapy practice called Created Life Consulting in New York. She's also licensed in Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, and provides individual therapy and coaching to people across the country. Fun fact. I love fun facts. 23 years ago, she was one of the first 100 clinicians to become licensed mental health counselors in New York State. And her license number is 99. She also has been an event leader and coach at Landmark Worldwide since 2017. Her current focus is working with high-achieving women in demanding careers who seek growth and guidance but feel stuck, unsatisfied, and struggle with confidence, leading to anxiety, imposter syndrome, and difficulties in interpersonal relationships. By using integrative, solution-focused techniques and her unique orientation to therapy, she helps her clients understand what's holding them back and discover their inner power so they can live a life that they love. She's passionate about empowering people to reach their full potential and elevate themselves and their lives. So help me to give a warm welcome to therapist, life coach, transformational leader, and my friend, Michelle Scolaro.
Thank you. That was such a great introduction.
It's all you. It's all you. Yes.
I loved your sharing about your experience of meeting me for the first time, because it reminded me that, oh wow, I guess you could have. I was a little bit I don't know, not outwardly enthusiastic when we first met.
Let's talk about
yeah.
that first Mary Kay party. Yeah. What were you thinking and what was I thinking? I remember I don't remember the exact year, but I know I started in 2001. So it wasn't, maybe within the first 2 or 3 years was when I met you at the party. And because I know I was working on becoming a director, so that was 2 or 3 years after. But I remember you were much more reserved. I mean, we all right. We all grow in who we are, and now we're like, this is who I am. But we're all like whatever. And I remember you didn't really say much.
Yeah.
You kind of.
That was me, shy, quiet. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And I remember, and I just felt like, all right, well, I don't know if she's so impressed with the products either, but that's all right. She's here. And you were supporting your friend, Tina, I believe, at the time. And it was great. And it was great, though. When you were joining, I was like, really? Okay, that's great. And we had such a great time.
You were shocked, right? I lead programs where like it's like that. You think people are like they're not getting this or like, half asleep, that, they're not interested. And then, at the end of the night it's like, "Oh yeah, where do I sign up?" You know?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So
And I
yeah.
guess,
Yeah, it can be like that.
yeah, it's probably a lot of like, when you're thinking, right? Because I might be the same way. I
Mhm.
won't say a lot because I'm really processing everything. And probably the less I talk, the more interested I really am, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure stuff out, you know?
Yeah.
It's really, yeah, it's funny. Well,
Well, it's interesting because I think, what that speaks to is, and I don't, because I'm gonna like be honest, I don't remember much about that night other than, or what I heard or trying the products, but I remember you and who you were being, and like you were so enthusiastic and positive, and there was something about that that I found really enrolling. And so I was like,
oh,
all right, I'll
that's
do
so
this. Like,
cool.
so yeah.
Well, thank you. That's such a nice thing to hear, because
And I'm gonna say that because we were talking about before we started hit recording. We were talking about like quotes. One of my favorite quotes is Maya Angelou, who said, "People won't remember what you said, and they won't remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel." And so, like,
yes.
yeah, it's like I don't remember, what the presentation was about, but I just remember leaving there with a sense of, oh, here's an opportunity for me to like, expand and make extra money and be an entrepreneur. And
Wow.
that's why I signed up.
That's
So
so nice to hear, and that
yeah.
is one of my favorite quotes. I love her quotes. They're
Yeah.
wonderful. But, oh my gosh, that's so nice to hear because you don't know, because I'm sure I was a bundle of I don't know what, like, not even knowing half the stuff I was doing, and I realize, younger at that point, I realized I was so much more in my head than I am, like,
Mhm.
now. Like, now, yes, I think things through, but I also pay attention to what, other people, and at the time, I think we're so in our head and just, like, it's awkward, I guess is the word, and then
Yeah.
thankfully outgrow that eventually. But that's so
Mhm.
cool.
Or not. I mean, some people
Oh,
deal with that.
true.
Like, I still deal with that all the time.
Mhm.
You know?
Yes.
I talk to
Yes.
people all the time. I lead to people, and, it is like I have to constantly remind myself to be out here with them instead of like, because when you're in your head, you're not with them and they can tell.
Yes. That's
It's
true,
just
that's
yeah,
true, and
yeah.
sometimes it's just, like, you want like, even when I'm doing these, right, podcasts, I'm like, "Okay, I just wanna like, I wanna do the guest justice," right? So I'm always like, Did I get enough? Like, did I look up enough?" Like, I get, like and then I get in my head
Yeah.
and I'm like, Just stop," because it's always the conversation, and it always is
Mhm.
so great, and that's how we connect. So it
Yeah.
like, we overthink sometimes, and it just gets to that point, And as much
And
as
it's great
I'm
that you can acknowledge that too. Like it's and then that's one of the tricks that I use. It's like I'll just, acknowledge it because
Yes.
it's authentic. It's like, oh, you know what? I'm kind of, not sure what to say. I'm a little nervous. Just
Yes!
be with it.
Just go with
Don't
it
mind
and
me. I'm over here like, doing my little nervous thing that I do when I, have an audience. Give me a second.
Yes.
I'll be with
It
you right now.
it's true, and that makes you more human to other people who are like, "Okay," because I think, being the perfect,
Yeah.
person, not to talk over talk, or I should say over talk like the Mary
Yeah.
Kay, but doing that, I think when I saw people that were perfect at it, I thought I could never do this. I'm not that person. But when you realize that it's not perfect, nothing is perfect in
Mhm.
life, and anybody can do whatever they feel. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, I looked at your website, of course.
Mhm.
Created
By the
Life.
way, I hate my website right now. I'm having it
What?
redesigned, so it is gonna change drastically, but thank you.
Okay, well, I
What do
liked
give me right, okay, good.
I'll tell you what I liked. First of all, I love the tagline, okay, because it says, "Elevate your life." Time to
Yes.
elevate your life. Love that. Find
Mhm,
your balance without the boundaries. Love that. Love that. I'm all
mhm,
about, like, going beyond your boundaries and comfort zones and everything else, and,
mhm,
and finding your balance, because life is about balance.
mhm,
But
mhm.
you can't balance I mean, you know what I'm gonna say probably, but you can't balance nothing's equally balanced, I believe, right? So today might
Right.
be I'm spending more time on my family, and tomorrow I might spend more time on my work because that's just the way it goes. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's like, if you can live in harmony, right? It's the
Mhm,
harmony of everything in your life maybe, and it doesn't always happen that way, of course. But I was gonna ask you because choosing a name for a website or a podcast or any business at all is like one of the most important and
mhm.
sometimes, I don't know, stressful unless you absolutely know what you're gonna do. So how did you come up with that? Is the name something you like, or are you changing that as well?
Yes. So the origin story of the name. I I don't think I'm going to change the name. That tagline, by the way, the "Find your balance without the boundaries," that was something that like I actually got from the person who helped me develop the website. But it made sense because part of why I made my business and made it 100% virtual was to make my services accessible, as easily accessible to anybody anywhere. And so that's the
Mhm.
like, getting rid of the boundary of, needing to go somewhere. And especially, post COVID, it became like, just so
Mhm.
commonplace. Um,
Right.
and
Right.
created life consulting, actually, I was born like the seed of it maybe 5, 6 years back, as a name because I really, through my own transformational journey and self development, got that like it is so possible for each and every one of us to be able to create a life that we want. And that's kind of the core of my uh, work, and my mission is to empower people to really have that agency, and not just like, oh, it sounds cool to say, and it's like the trendy thing to say is like you're the author of your life. But no, really, when you really can get that, anything becomes possible. Like you get to create the life that you want.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, that's kind of why I came up with that name. It's like just as a um because it's important to me, and it speaks to me and what I strive for, like,
Mhm.
and it might look
Yeah.
different at different times in your life. Like, what does a life you love look like? Doesn't
Right.
look now what it
No,
looked
I
like
agree.
to me, several years ago. But yeah.
Right. Right. And sometimes like last year, it could be anything. But yeah, I agree. And it gives you
Yeah.
more it gives us control of sometimes a world that's not in control. And I'm sure this has been
Mhm.
people have been saying this for trillions of years. Like everybody at one point feels like your world is out of control, and then
Yeah.
it gives you control to know that you can control your life and your future to point, of course there's things you can't control, but just the direction, I think, and that you do have
Yeah.
choices,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
and
so.
it's like the world is the way it is, and your circumstances, whatever you're dealing with, are your circumstances. But then there's
Mhm.
like, you get to have a say about it. Like, what do you say about it
Right.
is where you have the
Right.
control, and where
Right.
you can say something that's empowering you in the face of your circumstances, or you can be
Mhm.
and be at the cause end of it, or you can be at the effect end of your circumstances.
Right.
And
Right.
and that's where a lot of people get disempowered and feeling like life is happening to them,
Right.
versus it's life is happening how it's happening, and then you get to say how you're going to be about it in the face of all that.
Right. Right. Of course, we're going to be quoting throughout this whole thing because we both love quotes. But there's another quote that I love. I love them all. But where it says, "Bad things don't happen to you. Bad things just happen." Like, that's what
Mhm.
happens. Life is
Right.
full of things that happen. It's not
Mhm.
happening to you. And it's how you deal with it. Also, like, you're never stuck in something. I mean, you're just
Mhm.
not stuck. It might take time to get out of something, but you're never
Yeah.
stuck in something you don't want to be in. You're not going to stay
Mhm.
there forever, and I think it comes a lot
Mhm.
to that. But, I wanted to mention, first of all, the similarities, and this is the last I'm going to talk about Mary Kay, I promise. But the similarities between Mary Kay, and maybe not totally. I mean, I'm just like making light of it, a therapist, but
Mhm.
um, and being leaders and empowering women was what Mary Kay was about, right? And
Mhm.
people think about Mary Kay as being makeup and skincare and all that kind of stuff, right? But those are just the vehicles to empowering
Right.
women and to
Right.
empowering people. Because I remember circumstances of just doing skincare classes and makeup for people just to help them feel better, not for even the
Mhm.
sale. I did things and donated time just to do those things. And it was amazing the difference. I had a woman one time would not look in the mirror at all. And I said, "Well, I'll help you. I'll do whatever you want to do." And we did it. And I did a little bit of makeup, and then when she looked in the mirror, she cried. And I realized at that point that it was more than that. It was just being and having that human touch or feeling whatever, like putting on a
Mhm.
lipstick because it made you feel more of yourself or something like, like that. But I also want to say that now I mentioned, empowering women and all, but it's not just women who you work with, because I know that I read some stuff that, you've worked with all adults, right? From
Yeah.
diverse backgrounds. You've coached entrepreneurs, small business
Mhm.
owners, and supported clients dealing with anxiety,
Mhm.
self-image, or body image issues, and
Mhm.
LGBTQ plus and sexuality concerns, grief and
Mhm.
loss, and so much more, and
Mhm.
relationship issues. That's amazing. Like, that's a lot, and it's not just women, correct? So tell me a
Correct.
little bit about
Yes.
that kind of, like,
It's
what about your, like, how about your journey and what, like, inspired you to pursue this path and what you were going to focus on?
okay. How much time do we
I don't
have?
know. I'll let
Um,
you know.
so it's ever evolving. So, I'm still trying to like forge my path really. So,
Mhm,
because again, it does change for, I spent a lot of my early career um in the mental health field, working with like really seriously and persistently mentally ill people of low economic status, like, on welfare in the city of Poughkeepsie, who were like court mandated treatment and, doing home visits and, each population that I've dealt with has taught me something,
mhm,
and, added to my fund of knowledge and my experience and my ability to be able to pivot, um, and be with people where they are. So I think,
mhm,
in terms of my greatest, what I feel like is my biggest gift is my ability to really, beyond being empathetic, but again, being able to like be with people the way they are and listen for what they really want and need and provide
mhm,
that. And so, I'll fast forward a little bit. So like, yes, I've worked there, and then, I kind of stepped away from, you know, being directly, providing mental health service to more on the periphery, and, being a director at a program that provided services for adults with developmental disabilities. So I was in that realm for about 13 years, and then decided to, move into the for-profit sector and work with the elderly and work in senior living communities in a different capacity. And then, um, but and I liked that it was different. I did that only for a couple of years. I loved the people that I worked with, but it was like probably the furthest away from taking care of people, mentally, in terms of my career. And
mhm,
I do best with being able to have that connection with people. And because I was in an administrative capacity. I was like an executive director of a senior apartment facility, and um, there were things about it that I really excelled at, but um, I also, it just wasn't fulfilling me, even though I was telling myself it was, and like this is what I wanted, and I was excited about it, and doing the fake it till you make it thing, which worked to a certain point. But at the end of the day, it didn't fill my cup. you know
right, right.
um it didn't really light me up, and and so I wound up actually, like, getting dismissed from that job, and it was the probably one of the best things that
It's
happened.
funny how that happens, right? When
You
you're,
know?
like, dismissed from something and at first you're like, "Oh, no," and then you realize down the road that was, like, the best thing.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of quotes, like, so another one is, sometimes, something that doesn't work out for you does in fact work out for you,
Oh,
right? Or,
yeah, that's good,
or
that's good,
something
yeah.
to that effect. So I was like, all right,
Yes.
now what am I gonna do? And, I've been, uh and I had my practice on the side. It's always been a side gig through all of the years. And I was like, let me just, and I was doing it a little more regularly as a contract therapist for a company that did like EAP services, right, which is short-term therapy like that you get for free through an employer. You get like 6 free sessions or
Oh,
whatever.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
So I was doing
Right.
that online, and I was like, oh, okay, like I'll, why don't I, see about turning my, business into a full-time practice. So I did that
Mm-hmm.
about a year and a half ago. I've been doing full-time private practice for myself,
Right.
and loving it. And in doing that, like part of that was, okay, let me, what is my niche or my, ideal client, who, because I was working with so many people, and like some of them I enjoyed working with, some of them not so much. And so it kind of like led me to, when I thought about like my clients, which I've had hundreds and hundreds of clients, and the ones that really stood out for me that I really got a lot of enjoyment out of working with, and they really did so well, like we worked well together, was this, um, people who are just again, struggling with finding that um, thing in life that is missing, right? Like
Right.
here you are, you're, successful, you've, got a lot of things about your life that work really well. You've got the good job, the degree, the, even like husband or boyfriend or, um, marriage or business that you're starting. And yet, you're saying like, why aren't I as happy as I should be given all that I have? Or, why aren't I where I think I should be at this point in my life? And that's, that's the kind of, work that I do with a lot of my clients, something in that realm. Because, when you're in that sort of like funk that, the symptoms of anxiety and depression and, lack of confidence and uncertainty and, not being clear about like, what do I want from my life? It starts to impact, your relationships with people and,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know,
Yeah.
all of that. So there's a lot of commonalities among, people we're all a lot more alike than we all think. Like everybody thinks like, nobody
Mm-hmm.
else knows what it's like, or, you feel like there's something wrong with me. Other people can X, Y, Z. Guess what? Everybody's saying
Exactly, exactly. No, it's so true, and especially with social media, which of course, people are gonna post their, achievements and stuff like that. I don't wanna hear you posting all your bad stuff, although some people do that, So sometimes
right.
you look at their so you're measuring yourself against something that you think that's all their life is, that
Hmm.
their life is completely all these one success after another. They're not gonna sit there telling you, all of the things like that, so it's not a reality to think that nobody's
Right.
going through it because it's
Right.
so, and that's like one of the things I was gonna ask you too was like, because and you mentioned this, there are many challenges and obstacles that we face, right, on the journey. And I feel like we're saying, like we limit ourselves all on our own, all in our own mind and stuff, right? And you talk about imposter syndrome, and that is humongous, especially in the voiceover world, or
Yeah.
probably anywhere, but we talk about that a lot. We talk about like you're doing these things and you're like, why do I think I'm any good? This is ridiculous. Like I'm not good enough. Like why would they even hire me? Or if they do, like are they sure? Like like that kind of thing. So
Right.
like yeah, so I don't know. I'm gonna quote you too because I went and looked at some. You have some really great stuff. So whatever you're changing, I mean, run it by me first. No, I'm kidding. um, this was on actually. This was Psychology Today. So was this an article that you did for that, or is that part of your? I went into your Psychology Today and it had an article for you. You don't know because
Okay.
you're so popular. You're
It's something
everywhere.
I posted
Yeah.
somewhere. I don't know. What was it about?
Well, it's good. So I'll read it to you. Um, uh,
Okay.
this is what you said. As a high achieving woman, no one would know that you suffer from persistent anxiety. You're healthy, happy, successful, and according to your social media profile, which we just said, you're killing it. So why don't you feel you're doing as well as you should be? imposter syndrome kicks in and you're constantly comparing yourselves to others and you never seem to measure up. It takes a toll on you when you are always worrying, doubting yourself, and overthinking everything. Your relationships, self confidence, and health pay that toll. You don't want to keep feeling that way, but you don't know how to change things. You're ready for a breakthrough. And this is, I mean, you said some of this already now, and I said it
Hmm.
like because that's what I believe, and there it is again. So it's
Yeah.
we doom ourselves, like it's so massive. It's like, your thought today, one thing can be the end of the world, and then you think about it
Hmm.
differently, and tomorrow it's like not so bad. It's all in perspective, right? But more
Hmm.
than that, this is more intense.
Yeah.
So so just, I don't know, talk more about that. Give me a little help.
Okay. Well, I
Give me
mean,
a little a
and
little session.
I should probably say too, so like imposter syndrome is kind of, it's not a recognized like mental health disorder, right? So it's more of
Mhm.
like a uh something, a term that is just like common, you know, to describe, someone who is experiencing like feeling like, they're not as smart as they should be, or, skilled as they should be, or you know their level of expertise isn't where it should, anything like that. And I think it was originally like used to describe like high achieving women, as in application. But I think any one of us, when you agonize over like the smallest mistakes that you make at work, or do you have trouble with constructive criticism, or do you feel like you look at social media or your coworker or whatever, and you're like, oh, I can't do what they do,
Mhm.
and you
Right.
feel like a fraud. Like, I think we all have that experience. It's actually like a common human experience to feel like, you know if they really knew, you know I got to
If they
make
had
sure I
any
can keep.
idea.
Right, like, because we're, we need to like look good and avoid looking bad, and make sure that nobody finds out that really we think we're not good enough.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so so again, it's not like that's a disorder that needs to get treated. It's something that
Mhm.
we all deal with, and we experience it at different levels of intensity. But I think it's something at some point or another we all go through. And sometimes you can call it
Right.
imposter syndrome, but you can just call it
Life.
insecurity, or life.
Yes, yes.
For real, for real.
Right, so is there something like, that in that and when you're in the midst of that, right, is it just about saying, "Okay, so I'm in the midst of this," like we said, like, just admit it. "Okay, I'm in the midst of it, and I'm gonna get through this by doing," or just continue to do what I'm doing and doing it well or however I think is well and kinda get through it kinda thing? Because there's really, is there an answer to this is what I'm asking you. Is there really an answer to
There
this?
isn't an answer. I think there's a fund of answers. There's no magic bullet.
It's like, "Here, I'm here, fix me right now," and
Yes. Well, we could talk about that a little bit later too, because that's not how therapy works. I'm
I
sorry. At least not with
I
me.
what yeah, yes, well, that's another, well, I have another question about that, but if you have an let me let you answer that first. Is there no answer to that right now?
Well, listen, I think kind of a cousin of the imposter syndrome thing is, the whole fake it till you make it
Mhm, right,
phenomenon.
right,
Like, I remember saying
right.
that, early in my career. It's like, I don't know what
Me
I'm doing,
too.
but I'll fake it till I make it. And
Right.
there really is something to that, because and especially I think it's probably more familiar to some of our listeners because of like this whole trend of like manifesting and positive affirmation. It's
Mhm,
in line with that, like when you actually start to embody and be um acting the way you want to be, right? So
right,
if you have
right.
a result that you want, like you start embodying like the confidence and the competence, and like who you need to be in order to be that, like successful whatever you are in life.
Mhm, right.
It you you start to, something magical happens. You really start like taking actions that are consistent with that. And then those actions start to build on the next actions and you start to gain some momentum there. So, there is something
Right.
to that. It's not like just woo woo, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you, you can, in essence, and it's, but what my spin on it is like, consider that it's not really faking it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where, it kind of loses its magic, or, its efficacy with people, is because they think, it's not real.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
and
And
it
if you
and it
feel
and
that
it
way,
isn't
it's
until it is.
right,
Right?
right, because there's a fine line, and I know, because I've done it. I've faked it until
Yeah.
I made it, in certain thing. And sometimes there are situations where I might be saying, "Okay, I'm gonna fake it till I make it," and I'm like, "Maybe this is not the situation because it's not
Yeah.
working. I can't get it in
Except,
my brain," you know?
yeah, there's actually not too much that is really real. And,
Right,
guess what?
right.
Most of reality only exists because we say so. It only exists in language, right?
Yes, yes. The quote I've said this before on here was, "When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." So those things have stayed the same, but our
Right,
brain is changing the way we're perceiving it, and so the whole thing has changed. So like I said,
right.
today I could be miserable, tomorrow I'm like, this is pretty good." So it
Yep.
is completely that, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um so I wanted to ask you though, are there, and I know because it's so funny because I know I've had misconceptions about therapy, and I have gone in my lifetime, and I have to tell you the best thing I've ever done was go to therapy for a few years
Mhm,
and find out more about myself. That's what I did. I found out about
mhm,
me. It wasn't, you think you're going there to complain about everything in your situation, but I found out me and how I react to things, like things that I do. I now have a term that's called flatlining. I kind of
okay.
love it. Yeah. And so I got this in therapy. I loved her because she was like, "All right." So I'm like, "Why am I doing this?" Like I would almost in the worst situation just not either not react at all. And that's so not me, knowing me, right?
Mhm,
There would just be nothing. I would feel nothing. And she said, "That's you,
mhm,
you're flatlining because you've gotten that." So I said, "I like that." So now I know if I do that, I know this situation is so overwhelming for me that that's what I'm doing. And then I think it through differently. Whereas
mhm.
I never knew that before. So there's a
Right.
lot of misconceptions though about people going to therapy. You not maybe not nowadays like it used to be many, many years ago. But do you feel that people still have some of that? Are there common ones that you think?
Of course, because if you've never been to therapy, like, what do you have to go on except for, what you've seen in movies or read about, or, and the stereotypical image of therapy is like, you're sitting in a room, like, or laying on a couch and,
Right.
talking about your problems and crying, and the therapist is there
Right.
nodding with a notepad and saying, "Oh, so, and how did that make you feel?" And,
Yes. And
that's
like,
not what it
yeah.
looks like when you're in, with me. And again, my practice is 100% virtual, so, it's like
You're definitely not lying on the couch, though. If you want
you're not
to, I
lying on
mean,
the,
I don't know.
but that's the beautiful thing. It's sort of like, you're, you you're in the comfort of your own space. You can, as long as you're, not exposed, you can wear what you want, and like, just woke up, I'll it's actually, I kind of like the, it provides a different level of connection and, safety for the client to be able to like just be themselves. So I think, in a certain extent, some people will say, "Oh, well, it's not the same as like going in person to see somebody." I said, to some extent, it's actually, I think, even more beneficial to do it virtually than, um,
Mhm.
having to, like, again, get all dressed and look good to like go to some office and keep the mask up while you're trying to, like, dig deep
Right.
into, right? So,
Yeah, I
um
agree. I agree.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's true.
I love doing it virtually. I could at the, I've considered also, having an office space to offer in-person sessions as well, but I think people get more out of, at least my clients get more out of doing it,
Yeah,
online, because of that, the ease, the convenience, and, it sets them up, and invites them to be themselves and be
right.
comfortable and open. So it truly is a safe space. And, and the safe space that I provide is just, a kind of listening. So, it feels like you're talking to like your best friend, but even better because it's like your
Mhm.
really smart best friend that gives you the advice that you need. Right?
Yes, yes, and doesn't just commiserate, because we do need that too, though. But, not just commiserating, giving you some good advice,
Yeah.
which is really important.
Yeah.
Yes, that's so
Yeah.
important.
And so
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's like, there's no one size fits all. And, I think the trend is a lot of therapists do, have like different styles that they adopt. It's
Mhm,
not just like, one, I'm a, Freudian or, Carl Rogers, or I do DBT or C. Like I take um the best parts of all the different modalities that I've been trained in, and add
mhm,
some of my own, and deliver that from like the life coaching perspective, and like using Socratic method, which is it's more effective because we're so inundated with like self-help and books and podcasts and TED Talks and
mhm.
da da da, and you know I think it provides value to a lot of people, but then it also, like, if you think about it, all this information that you get and the things that you learn and the tips, tricks, techniques, do they really make a difference? That's more information. It's great to have information. It's necessary, but it doesn't really make a difference in what really matters to you. Like, I know lots of stuff too. I know how to lose weight. That doesn't
Right.
mean that's happening.
Right, exactly.
I I've been trying to lose the same 5 pounds for the last 2 years, right?
Right, it's like sometimes we know
So
what to do. Yeah,
knowing makes no difference. Yeah, but it's, consider that like why I'm not doing that is because I don't know why, and I don't even know that what I don't know. It's like something that's in my blind spot. So like that would be, I'd
right,
get some coaching because a coach
right,
is able to kind of see what's in your blind spot. But
right,
the trick
right,
is, I can't tell you what's in your blind spot because that's just more information. It's not going to make a difference. It'll be like interesting
right.
for you to hear. What I
Okay.
do is in our sessions, I'm going to like lead a conversation, ask you questions that are going to get you to start to turn your head. And then you get to see what's in your blind
Ah,
spot. And once you discover for yourself what's in your
yeah.
blind spot, it's like, aha, that's like the real aha
Yes.
moment, and it stays with you forever because like when you discover something, it's different from learning. You don't have to try to remember it. It's just like you get constituted as like that new thing. It's sort of like when you learn to ride a bike, you didn't learn by having it explained to you or watching someone else did it. Like you had to discover what balance felt like for yourself, and once you discover balance, it stays with you forever. That's why they say you never
Yes.
forget how to ride a bike.
Right, right. This
Yeah.
is good stuff, Michelle. I'm liking this stuff. I love it. This is really good. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So I'm a big like faith person. Okay. So in the midst of something detrimental, I can be like, all right, I don't lose faith. I might get annoyed and pissed off. And it might be like, I cannot believe this is happening. But I'll always be like, okay, either there's a reason for it, or there's something, or I'm protected from something. I mean, I don't know if I just make myself feel better, but do you think that like faith or spirituality play a role in the process for a lot of people, whatever the faith is, whether like I'm a God girl, but it could be something else, whatever their faith,
Yeah.
do you think it's important to have that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, so again, i- if I have a client that, has faith and it's important to them, it's part of their process and part of their
Mhm.
their healing. And people who, don't have faith or, are
Mhm.
atheists or whatever, they have just as much of a shot at healing as people who,
Exactly.
right? So,
It could be faith in just faith that you're gonna get through it. That's like important too. Like
yeah,
there are some people that just don't like, okay, it's over, right? This is it. There's nothing's going to happen. So it could be that
yeah.
faith. It doesn't have to be a spiritual faith, but a faith in like, okay, it's going to work out whatever way. It might
Hmm.
not be what I think it is, but it's going to work out. So because it's got to be difficult when you're at a
Hmm.
point and you've got none of that, because that's not
Hmm.
it's bad enough being in a place where you feel like you are in like stuck in the mud and not having faith that you're not staying in that, and that's
Hmm.
that's hard, is to do that. So
Yeah.
Um,
That's one of
yeah,
those, like, use whatever tools are at your disposal. If you have a strong relationship with your faith and your
mhm,
God, then use it.
right,
Absolutely.
right. So you're saying, I know you're saying how you help people discover the blind spot. I love that. That's great. Are there like it's basically a conversation? You're probably like in tune to what they're saying to be like
Mhm.
to guide the conversation or something, right?
Yes.
Um,
And it's also, and most people, because here's the other thing, and I'm this way too. I like to see results. I'm like,
mhm,
instant gratification, you know, is really a thing.
mhm,
So, and when you are dealing with like anxiety and constant worry and like you just want to feel better. Like
right.
that's people come to me because they like I want to stop like having this hamster wheel of thought in my head that like I can't sleep, I can't, I have this sick pit in my stomach.
Mhm,
So using again, it's a dynamic, I'm going to use what I think is going to work best for them. They'll talk about, okay, well, what is it that right now you're dealing with that you want to have a breakthrough in? And it's got to be like, tell me, like, not theoretically or in general, but like, what happened this week or last week, or, what was that fight you had with your significant other, or, what did your boss say, or what
mhm.
bill came in that you're now like, ruminating over. And like, we like kind of come up with a solution, and people have breakthroughs and they see like, and get like, again, this is like tools, right, for them to use to deal with whatever negative emotions they're dealing with so that they have some symptom relief immediately, while we're
Mhm,
also doing that, deeper work to uncover those blind spots and have them, create like a real transformation and lasting change in like who they get to be and how they get to experience in their lives, and how they get to like live their lives.
and it's gotta be a huge relief when you're able to someone's able to say it to you because you're an objective person who you're not judging them, you're not anything, and they can be like, "This is what's really bothering me." They can really talk about this thing that they might not be able to talk to anybody about, only keep it in their head.
Yeah.
So even
Yeah.
just to talk say it and then you having a perspective on it and giving solutions or not even solutions, but tools to figure things out, that's
Hmm.
gotta be huge just
Yeah.
right there, just doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
whole it's a whole continuum because, because there is also space for sometimes they don't need an answer or a solution. They just need an audience. They need a witness to
Right.
their pain,
Mhm. Right.
right? And
Right.
and
Right.
and like and that's what I provide too. Like, and even like they might already know what there is for them to do, or what is stopping them. But like when you just keep it in your head and you don't share it, it has
Mhm.
no life. It has no place to go. So it's, sometimes just the act of saying something out loud. And like this is again another common, feedback that I get from my clients is like, wow, like, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and not until I like just said it to you out loud is it like they're released from it. you
Right,
know
right, right,
so
and sometimes you might not even know, sometimes I might have a stressful day and I'm thinking and I'm like, "There's nothing really major." I don't know
mhm,
why, but I realize it might be too many things in one day or too many things happening. So, one by one, as I get the one thing done and then maybe another thing, and if I have appointments or whatever I'm doing, then I feel better. So I realize that
mhm,
I've just overwhelmed myself with that. So even
mhm.
realizing that there's things, trying to figure out why am I feeling this way rather than just going with the fact that I just feel crappy today. I feel
Right.
like really bad
Right.
and because that doesn't help. That just totally
Right.
is awful.
Mhm.
So
Right, because
yeah,
what's underneath the question of like, why am I feeling this way? Like,
right.
what's asking that question is, there's something wrong with me that I'm feeling this way.
Right. Right. And there's no reason for
Right.
it. Like, why am I feeling like that? That there's no
And
reason.
sometimes you
And
need to just hear, like, guess what? There's nothing wrong with you. Like,
right. Right.
when
Exactly.
we like, the negative emotions and feelings are part of the human experience.
Mhm.
They are
Yeah.
actually normal and natural.
And I feel like because I just feel like things are very stressful now, just like cost wise, things are expensive, jobs, sometimes you can find, you can't find. So I just feel like there's an overwhelming need for this, the conversation, to have somebody like you that people get, even if it's like, do you have people that come long term or do you ever have people that come a few times and is it
Yes.
whatever? Is it
Yeah.
up to them? Like they kind of decide what they need or a little of both?
It's a little of both. and I think I'm surprised you didn't like quote this off my website because I think you would say like, you know, and this is a good, it seems counterintuitive, but like, I am proud to say like I have a lot of clients that don't see me for very long. And,
Right.
like maybe I'm,
Yes.
kind of it's like
That's
you would think it's the opposite, right? Like I want to keep as many clients as I can for as long as possible. But no, like that doesn't fulfill me. Like that means I'm failing at my
right.
job.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
so yeah, so I have some that I've, that have been with me for a couple of years. But again, it's like, listen, life is life, and they'll go through periods where like they're dealing with what they're dealing with and they're seeing me every week, and then we taper off and we change the cadence, and then so like those clients
Mhm.
that have been with me for a couple of years, some of them I see like once every couple of months. They just want to check in and
Right.
keep contact, but unless
Mhm.
something else comes up, and then we pick up again. And then I have some that like came for a specific goal and breakthrough that they wanted to have in their career, or in figuring out whether to stay with their partner, or and they resolve that, and
Mhm.
then treatment is concluded. And for the most part, like people kind of know. um and if they don't, like I have some people who, like, I'm never going to say like stop coming to me, but I'll definitely suggest like, oh, do you want to like go to like every other month, or something like that,
Right.
because I don't want
Right.
you to think that, because you don't have to have something bad going on in your life to benefit from talking to a
Mhm.
therapist. So
Right. It can just be an
yeah,
ongoing thing that keeps you kind of,
yeah,
I'm going to say like for myself, keeps me like in check of like in touch, like, like, okay. And it's always a good thing. When I was going, and it was a couple of years, more than a couple of years. And then one session, she's like, so I think you need to fire me. And I'm like, no. And I went, but I think you're right. But no. And I did over, over the years, like what I felt a need, I touch base. Okay, so
yeah,
listen. And then she knows me. So she knows my
yeah.
life, she knows all this stuff. And it's like just talking to an old friend, but one, like you said, that can give you good advice.
Right. But
Yeah.
again, it's like it's about like the context that you have for it, because if you were feeling like you needed to like have some problem to keep coming to therapy, so then you start inventing problems so that you can keep
Oh,
coming. It's like you got to watch
wait, I
out for
have
that.
something.
That might be why she wanted you to fire her, Like,
She's like, "Fire me now because you're fine right now. You can do whatever." It's so
Yeah,
funny. And the
but
word
like mental health is a continuum. So there's like when
yes.
you're like not doing well, and then you can like kind of bring yourself to neutral, and you're not good or bad. But then there's like the other side of the spectrum, which is like, all right, what about like thriving? What about joy? What
Right.
about fulfillment? Like that's why it's most of my clients are like again pretty high achieving, doing pretty well in life, but
Mhm.
they're just not where they want to be. So like, yeah, you have
Mhm.
every right to the exactly the life that you want to live, and the being fulfilled. So
Right.
that's my
Right.
pleasure and privilege to help provide.
And I love and talk about that for a minute because I just love hearing that when you're saying that because I so believe in that. I so believe that you can control the path of your life. And I know a lot of people, like not a lot, but a few in my life will say like, I'm stuck or I can't do anything about it or whatever. But like what is I know you can't do a whole session here, but I'm just saying, is there like something like what makes you believe that that's possible? Like what makes you think like, yes, you are in control? Besides just saying it because it sounds great, but I know I agree with you, and I know what you're saying, but I can't explain it. That's a hard one, isn't it?
So the quick answer for me personally, right? So like I said, I've been on my own, personal journey of transformation that started several years ago. I'd attribute a lot of who I am right now in this moment, and the strides I've taken in my ability to provide for my clients and develop my practice, um, from the work that I did with Landmark. So Landmark Worldwide is a personal and professional training and development company that does seminars and other programs for people. And their like a flagship or prerequisite program, the Landmark Forum, is where I really got that I am the author of my life, and could
Mhm,
see from there like how to deal with anything that happens really powerfully. And that's not to say
mhm.
like I don't have the perfect life. It's close.
I
I've got a perspective now, and I've got a set of tools that I can use, and I use them all the time. And the
Mm-hmm.
tools in that particular discipline are called distinctions, meaning like, distinguishing different, um, things about, what it means to be human,
Mm-hmm.
um, for humans, and, what does freedom, joy, fulfillment look like, and how do you get that, and what's the meaning of life kind of stuff, right?
Yes. What is
Or
my
how do you
purpose and what's the meaning of life?
right,
Yes,
and
those
how do you
questions.
create that?
Yeah,
And like, the short answer is I really got that, like, life is, what you make of it. And
that's
it's
true.
available to all of us because we all have language. And, that's kind of where I really discovered that too, like, and got like, wow, you know, so much of what has you, feel the way you feel isn't like the circumstances that you're in. And there's plenty of examples of that, like, people who are poor, like,
Mhm.
are happy, and people who are rich are sad. It's not the circumstance
Exactly.
of being like rich or poor that causes happiness or sadness, right? So it's
Right.
it's the, the your interpretations of life, the meaning that you give to the things that happen,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Right.
that give you
Yeah.
your experience of it. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and
I agree.
we're all like, that's all we do is we interpret our environment and like judge it and give it meaning. But that meaning comes
Mm-hmm.
from us and, our view. And our view is colored
Right.
by our experiences. So it's kind of like how our identities get constructed throughout life is,
Mm-hmm.
we have these experiences that we then interpret and, make a judgment on that becomes our belief. And then, we have to then come up with coping mechanisms or, ways to compensate for whatever that thing is. And,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of forms our identities. And, that keeps happening throughout life.
Right. No, I agree. I know exactly what you're saying because I could be in the midst of craziness and I'll be like, don't get me wrong, I'm happy. It might not
Hmm.
look like I'm happy at this moment, at this
Yeah.
situation, but overall, my life, I'm happy with my life. So I get
Yeah.
that. I get that feeling of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just
So,
in the day to day, like, if you've got the
mhm.
kind of job where you're like, you don't even have time to pee, right? Because
Right, right.
you're so busy. And like, if you're someone who says, "Oh my God, I'm drowning. I'm so
Yes.
overwhelmed." Like that gives
Hmm.
a certain experience, right? You can imagine what it must be like for that person, but like same
Right,
job, same task, same doingness, and you say, "Wow, I'm getting so challenged at work."
right.
Right?
Still perspective, right?
It's
Different.
perspective. It's like, "Oh, wow, I'm really being
Yeah.
stretched," you know?
Right.
I'm really, like,
Hmm.
being challenged and having to rise to the occasion
Right.
versus I'm drowning.
Exactly. Right. Although
Right?
there are days I'll be like, "Oh my god, I'm drowning." But,
Yeah.
sometimes I like to hit rock bottom on a day, go, "That's it. I quit. I like quitting." And then that's it. And then the next day I'm like, "Okay, I'm back. I'm good."
Yep. Yep.
Something to be said for just giving up on a day. I'm done.
Yeah.
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 In certain
But I
situations.
think like, that here's the empowering thing about that, is that you own it because you declare it.
Yeah, darn it. I do. I declare that I like to quit once in a while.
Yeah, no,
And
like,
it's
"Okay, I'm
funny.
done. I'm
It
not
feels
doing this."
good.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It totally is like, I can think of the moment in my life which like I give up. I tried all I can try. It's over. And of course in the back of my mind I knew it was just over for the day, maybe
Right.
2 days. And then I was like, all right, and now I'll be back and I'll figure it out. But
Mhm.
sometimes trying not admitting that I'm done is the worst thing because now I'm pretending as if I'm just fine, and I'm really not.
Right.
So it's yeah, it does. So
Yep.
thank you. Yeah, I own it.
Yeah.
So I want to, God, I could talk to you all day, but I want to ask you my signature question, because I'm afraid you're going to talk about it before I ask you it. And so my signature question is: share a moment in your life or career of resilience, divine intervention, or a time you had to pivot, which I know because I heard you say pivot before. Just a moment that you can, and I'm sure there's more than one moment, but
Oh
just
my
share.
goodness. Oh,
Mm,
I wish you asked me this ahead of time so I could prepare, because you didn't send me these interview questions ahead of time. So this is all off the cuff, people.
And she's doing darn good, let me just say.
There's no faking anything here, just so you know. Like,
I thought I sent you at least the signature question, but that's all right. It's good because I know you can go on the fly. I know you can do it. Like a
all
defining
right,
moment that you want to share, of course.
related to my career or
Anything. Life or career or something where you're like, that's the moment you had to be resilient, or there was like a divine intervention where you're like, anything that comes out, or you had to pivot completely. It could be your career, your life, whatever.
so I'm divorced. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and we got separated, divorced when she was like 5. And and it was contentious. In fact, and she was with me, like, and saw her dad on every other weekend, but we weren't talking or communicating, even though we were like trying to co-parent, but he would only
Mhm.
communicate with me via text.
Oh.
And it would just wasn't, it didn't work. And it was after, I had done like Landmark and with the partner that I'm with now, Michael, who's like, amazing. And he was actually the one that kind of woke, like, I kind of knew like this isn't working, but I wasn't willing to do anything about it. And he was like, it doesn't work that you like have all these tools and skills and you don't talk to your daughter's father. Like, that I can't stand by and just say nothing about that, right? So he kind of
Yeah.
like kicked my ass a little bit. And for me, I really was dealing with, I think, a lot of, again, insecurity and feeling like, a terrible mother, and guilt and all of that, and anger, and being a little bit like spiteful and resentful toward my ex, and like, well, if he's not going to talk to me, I'm not going to talk to him. And that was me, like, I saw how like that was all about me. And
Right.
when I realized, like, I put the focus on her and saw like what it must have been like for her, as like now it's, and and around this time she was like asking to go live with him because she wanted to see
Okay.
what it was like to live with him. So I had to like deal with that, like,
That's
why
not
doesn't she
easy.
want, I had like
Right.
30 seconds of, oh my God, she
Yes.
doesn't want me. That's not,
Mhm.
I was able to again reframe that to,
Which is
no,
not
she's just,
easy. Not easy. Being a mom, I can tell you that I would do the
yep,
same, take it
yeah,
personally, but I understand
yeah.
her saying it, but I would do the
But it
same.
was like, me taking on that, like, okay, this is going to go the way I say it goes. And, for too long, I haven't been saying what I needed to be saying about it. I've been saying it's
Mhm.
fine. I don't need to like have a relationship with her dad at all. And, that just wasn't authentic. And so um, I was like, all right, who do I need to be here in this
Right.
situation? I need to be generous and forgiving and vulnerable with
Mhm.
him. So instead of texting like we always do, I actually called him up, and said to him, he would answer if I called, because I wouldn't call unless there was like something wrong. So he'd be like, what is it? And I was
Right.
like, listen, I have, there's something I want to tell you. First, I want to say, I think you're a really good dad.
Mm.
And I never told you that, but you are. Um, And he's like, "Oh, well, thanks." I'm like, "I know Elena's really important to you and you have her best interests at heart." And like, I think he was kind of quiet. And he was like, "Well, thanks for, yeah, of course, she's my world." And I'm like, "All
Mhm.
right." And then we really need to talk about her request to live with you full time, because it's, if we're not talking, it's not going to work.
Mhm.
So I want, I want to try to make it work, because
Mhm.
I love her too. And I want her to have what she wants. And, she deserves to have two parents that can be in a
Yeah.
room together, right? This needs
Right.
to be
Right.
about her and not us.
Mhm.
And he said, and I was surprised, like, he was quiet for a little while, and then he said, "I think this is a conversation we should have in person. When are you free?"
Oh, wonderful. Wow.
So that was like the start of this transition and this like whole new family that we had. So like we started meeting once a month at this kitchen table behind me.
Ah.
my ex-husband, his new girlfriend, my daughter, me, and my boyfriend to
Wow.
talk about how are we going to do this. And we came up with a plan to transition her from one house to the next and see, if she really wanted to go there by like changing our visitation schedule for a while. And then, at the end of 6 months of us doing this, she decided, yes, I want to go live there. And that happened. And, we kept up but like what opened up for us out of that is like, it took a little while because it was like new and different. But now
Mm-hmm.
we have like, I can pick up the phone and talk to him. We've, invited him and his girlfriend for holidays. This past summer, we were like supposed to go to the airport at like 4 o'clock in the morning. The Uber canceled at the last minute. I called him up and got him out of bed. He got out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning to drive me and my boyfriend and his daughter to the airport for our vacation
I love
together.
it.
Like
I love
that's
that.
a miracle.
I have chills of you talking about this. This is amazing. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
That is
And
wonderful.
and that's available to anybody. And that's what
Wow.
I want to provide for people.
Mm-hmm.
That
Exactly. Oh my
kind
God, my whole
of,
body is a chill.
yeah,
That is great.
yeah.
I'm so glad I didn't tell you that question ahead of time. You would have overthought
I,
it.
I might have.
You would have had other choices. Wait, let me see what else I'm going to talk about. That is such a wonderful, wonderful thing to have because I myself am divorced and I have a good relationship and I see the difference totally. It's
Mhm.
about your children and it's about them, but it's not easy when you're a mom, like you said, especially if you're going through and it's not a great relationship at that time. And you're like, you just kind of want to be like, nope, she's mine. Too bad,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then to think that that is a wonderful story. That really is. That just makes me so happy. That's really a great story. I love it. So, gosh, that was a great way to last question to ask you. But I do want to say for your listeners who may be going through like challenging times and things like that, like um and starting a journey with looking for somebody to talk to, is there any advice you can give them at all? Because that's overwhelming in itself. What
Yes. So it is important to like find the right person and someone that you really can connect with and feel comfortable talking to. So like being able to have a rapport with a therapist. And, it's sort of like you're not necessarily going to know immediately. Sometimes you do, but most therapists,
Mhm.
and I do this as well, will offer like a free consultation. Like it's a the way I did it's 15 or 20 minutes, like a shorter like phone call, let's say.
Mhm.
You can ask your questions and kind of get a sense of their personality. And for me, as I like it as a provider, because the fit's got to go both ways. So like you
Mhm.
share what you're dealing with, and they're gonna if they're a provider of integrity, they're gonna like be honest and say, okay, yes, that's what I treat or I have specialty in, or they'll refer you to someone. If they don't, they might suggest that you find somebody else. So that's the first thing is like
Right.
and I would say interview at least 3 providers. And you can, there's lots of clearinghouses or directories, and I know a lot of people need to use insurance. So like if you go through your insurance company, they usually have a director, and you can find your way to the providers. I have any licensed provider is going to be like on Psychology Today, so you can like go with like a professional platform like that. Or there are a lot of providers who are out of pocket or they don't take insurance, so that the financial aspect is something to deal with. So that's one of the questions you can ask. I happen to, I'm paneled right now with insurance companies, but I'm going to be ending my contract at the end of the year, so I will not be taking insurance
Okay.
very soon. And I already have clients who don't use insurance just because they want me and I'm not in their network now, or because
Mhm.
it's sort of like if you think about I would caution people against like shopping based on price for something
Right.
like
No,
this.
true. True.
It's a little bit
Yes.
too important to
Right.
um, sort
Yeah,
of
there are
bargain
certain things
shop,
that
right?
certain things to shop around for, but this I agree with you. I agree. And I understand that really money can be an issue
Yeah,
and stuff. Some insurance companies pay some out of network, some don't. I mean, I know
yeah.
with the cost and the insurance company, it's not always the case, but
Mhm.
I agree. I agree that it's
Yeah.
not
And
something
most
to
providers will, give you what's called a super bill, which is something the insurance company requires for you to submit to get reimbursed for your out of network benefits. So, um,
Right. Right.
Or, if
That
you have like a HRA or a flexible spending account, you can just make sure you're putting enough in to cover the cost, because, that
yes.
is an eligible expense is, if you pay for therapy out of pocket, you get to use your flex
Yes. Yes. I
money for
love
that.
that. This is my second year of doing that. I've never did that before. And I'm like, whatever. And now I
Mhm.
have to tell you, I don't know how I never did that before. That's an awesome thing because your money's there the January 1st, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so even though you're, paying throughout the year for it, that's how it works for mine. I think that's how it works for
Mhm.
all of them. But it's great because then you're not holding back, like, and you're getting the full thing. I love that you give that 15 minutes. I think it's so important
Mhm.
because if you are paying that money and it is, and you get there and you're like, okay, this did not work out, I would be hesitant to go find somebody. That would be me. I'd be hesitant to
Right.
go to a
This way
different
you don't have to
person. And
spend money to like find the person.
right.
It'd be like it
Yes.
narrows it down, because, listen, there's certainly
Mm-hmm.
like, you might feel good in the call and then have a first or even a couple of sessions and feel like, it's not jiving. And,
Right.
at any point, listen, we don't take it personally. Like, it's more
Right.
important that you be with somebody who's really going to be able to provide what you need. And if,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a skills issue. It really can sometimes come down to like a personality fit with a
Right.
clinician.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I
That's
I
true.
never take it personally when, find the right
Yes.
person. Um,
Right.
so,
Right, because you wanna connect, like you said, you wanna
yeah,
connect as well, you wanna know that you're helping this person, you're not just
yeah,
there for the money, you're there to help
yeah.
this person. So, yeah,
And that
that's
includes
great.
if they're, if they are coming and not really like putting in the work or making the progress.
Mhm.
I'll ask, can I be straight with you? And I'll have the frank conversation of like, look, what are you doing here? Like, are you getting anything out of this? Because,
Right.
unless you're like, I'm happy to like let you vent, but at a certain point, like, I'm not just going to be the sounding board for you to like complain and never want to change or do anything. Like,
Right, exactly.
that's not going to do us, like, might make you feel good in the moment, but like if you're not getting anywhere, like, you can do that for
Mhm.
free on, a blog or
Right,
talk to a friend,
exactly.
right? Like,
Talk to a friend, post on Facebook, I don't know, do something. It's true. That's true, that's true, and I feel like
so yeah,
nowadays, I say too, though, it's like talking about, like, the social media thing and everything, I always feel like it's like I'm digitally overloaded, that's my wording, because there's so much information out there, there's so many
yeah,
things. I like the fact that, like you said, you can do this consultation, you can make an informed decision rather
yep,
than picking by because you can't, okay, she looks nice and that I like that name, like, it's hard to
hmm,
do, and then you get there and it's just discouraging, so that's
yeah,
great, I love that,
yeah,
advice. I know myself when I called, I really need to go talk to somebody. Thankfully, I did connect with the first person because I don't know if I would have gone and continued looking. I really don't know for sure. So
hmm
it's nice to know that you can do that trying out and stuff like that. But my first appointment, right? I said, "Okay, you have three visits. Fix me." That's exactly what I said. Fix
yes.
me. So I can,
I
yeah,
do want to talk
that's
about this actually.
just yes. I didn't want to leave this out because I just remembered that we said that, and I truly meant it. And she said that it's not about fixing you. So I would love to hear your perspective on that before we go.
Okay. Well, two things about that. So, it's not about fixing you, like, resonates with, one of my philosophies, which is you're not broken necessarily. So it's not about
Mhm.
fixing or changing. It's about, like, again, discovering, consider that there's just some barrier to you, like, being who you want to be. And so it's about finding that
Mhm.
barrier that's like in your blind spot, right? And then
Right.
the other aspect of it is like, this isn't the like fix me program. Like, it's not, guess what?
Fix me.
You have to do all the heavy lifting. Like when you go to the gym
Right.
and hire a trainer, you're not hiring the trainer to like,
Yes.
do the lifting for it. Like, you got to do the lifting.
Yes. Yeah.
The
Yep.
coach is there to like guide you and tell you how to do the work you got to do.
Mhm.
And
Right.
the work is also, therapy doesn't just happen in the 50 minutes that we're talking. It's actually the work gets
Mhm.
done out there in your life as you're living every day,
Right.
and you put into practice the
Yes.
things that you discover during our sessions
Mhm.
together. So that's what I have to say about the whole, like,
I love that.
and listen, I've had clients who are kind of like that. Tell me what to do, fix me, like, how do I change?
Right.
And it's like, no.
Mhm.
I
And I can relate to that.
and sometimes I'll say, I'm like, okay, I can tell you what to do, but it's not going to make a difference for you. So, like, do you?
Right. Yeah. Well, I like that though. But yeah, because the whole fix me thing is there is something wrong with me. So when I went to that, I'm like, why am I feeling this way? There's something wrong, like, and
Yeah.
it came out of nowhere, which is not true,
Mhm.
but it felt
Yeah.
like it did, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But anyway, I love that. I love that. Like I said, I can talk to you
I
all
know.
day. Would you finish us off with a quote? Because you know how much we said so many because we loved them.
I know. I can give you a quote, another person's. I have so many too. So, like, back to, like, perspective and everything. And Anaïs Nin said, "We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are."
I like that. I like that one.
Right? So again, what you say, yeah. If you see, work as drowning, or if you see it as, if you're someone who is a victim, then that you're going to see it as drowning, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I like that one. That's a really good
Yeah.
one.
Oh, and then something that I say to my clients all the time, and I know we talked about this before, is like, because again, like, how your experience is, very much a product of, like, the meaning that you give to things and what you say about things. And, so I'll, tell them, like, when they're in the swirl of negativity, it's like, the suffering is optional.
Oh, yes. I like
So,
that.
I hear
Yes.
you're suffering about this situation, but, you don't
Yeah,
have to be suffering. You could say something else that will really release you from that.
exactly.
So,
Which gives us choices, which gives us control, which is really important to have
yep.
that control and feel like you have control over things.
Mhm.
Very cool. Well, share, like, again, like, where can we find you? And I'm going to put it in the show notes,
Okay.
links to you and everything, but what's the best way?
So right now, the best way, I guess, is to go to my website, which is, again, it's active. It'll look different in
We
the next
like it.
couple of
She
months.
might change it, but we
All
like
right.
it.
Um, and the web address is createdlife.llc.
Okay. That's the best way. Okay, great. And they can
That's
just
the
drop you a
best
note through
way.
there
Yeah.
or
Um,
call. What do you think? Call,
They
note,
can call.
what's
They
the
can
best
call me
way?
too. They can call or text me as well. So, and I gave my website because the phone number is on the website too. But you can phone me at 914-306-5141 or text me there. And you can also email me at michelle@createdlife.llc.
Wonderful, wonderful. This has been like such a fast time together. It was so great,
I
really.
know.
I mean, my
Like, we got
goodness.
to do a part two.
I was going to say, I hope you'll come back again. Let's do it. Let's do it. Maybe we'll pick a topic to focus on. So I so appreciate you being here. And to our listeners, I want to say, if you want to be a guest as well on the on Time to Elevate, just reach out through Time to Elevate on Instagram or email timetoelevate@timetoelevate.org. And I do want to thank, of course, my beautiful daughter, Victoria Lynn Purdy, for this intro and outro that she created for us. And listen to her interview too, if you haven't yet, because she was on here as a guest. So thank you.
Thank you.
Life gets tough, and I know it's hard to cope with the unknown. For all of us, I know it'd be easy if we were perfect, but we're not. So we go to find our faith, to find our hope. It all begins with looking up. It all begins with you. It's time to